కింద వేసే
Yeah, hello to everybody. Uh, Today is the last and the final episode of the reading of the Animal Farm by George Orwell. So this is episode number 10. There are 10 chapters in the book. So we have covered 9 chapters already with quite a bit of discussion. And today is going to be the final chapter and the closing down of the reading of the book. And hopefully maybe there's some discussion towards the end, but I guess by now you should have uh, got some kind of a drift on what this book is referring to and what the outcomes of such totalitarian ideologies are going to be. So, with that said, I'll jump into the reading and then I'll try to cover the material very fast today so that we can finish it without wasting too much time. And then we can always have a discussion at the back end. So, George Orwell's Animal Farm, Chapter 10. Years passed, the seasons came and went, the short animal lives fled by. A time came when there was no one who remembered the old days before the rebellion, except Clover, the horse, Benjamin, the donkey, Moses, the raven, and a number of the pigs. Muriel was dead. Bluebell, Jessie, and Pincher were dead. Jones, too, was dead. He had died in an inebriate's home in another part of the country. So basically, he got together with another person who used to drink a lot, and then he died there. Snowball was forgotten. Boxer was forgotten, except by the few who had known him. Clover was an old, stout mare now, stiff in the joints and with a tendency to rheumy eyes. She was 2 years past the retiring age, but in fact, no animal had ever actually retired. The talk of setting aside a corner of the pasture for superannuated animals had long since been dropped. Napoleon was now a mature boar of 24 stone. Squealer was so fat that he could with difficulty see out of his eyes. Only old Benjamin was much the same as ever, except for being a little grayer about the muzzle, and since Boxer's death, more morose and taciturn than ever. Morose is very depressed, right? There were many more creatures. I think so. I'm not exactly sure what morose means, but you get the mood of the situation. There are many more creatures on the farm now, though the increase was not so great as had been expected in earlier years. Excuse me. Many animals had been born to whom the rebellion was only a dim tradition, passed on by word of mouth, and others had been um, and others had been bought who had never heard mention of such a thing before their arrival. Uh, Pravina Rao garu, Omkaran garu, namaste andi. Okay. The farm possessed uh, The farm possessed 3 horses now besides Clover. They were fine, upstanding beasts, willing workers and good comrades, but very stupid. None of them proved able to learn the alphabet beyond the letter B. They accepted everything that they were told about the rebellion and the principles of animalism, especially from Clover, for whom they had an almost filial respect, fatherly respect. But it was doubtful whether they understood very much of it. Uh, The farm was more prosperous now and better organized. It had even been enlarged by 2 fields, which had been bought from Mr. Pilkington. The windmill had been successfully completed at last, and the farm possessed a threshing machine and a hay elevator of its own, and various new buildings had been added to it. Wimper had bought himself a dog cart. The windmill, however, had not, after all, been used for generating electric power. It was used for milling corn and brought a handsome money profit. The animals were hard at work building yet another windmill. When that one was finished, so it was said, the dynamos would be installed. But the luxuries of which Snowball had once taught the animals to dream, the stalls with electric light and hot and cold water, and 3-day week, were no longer talked about. Napoleon had denounced such ideas as contrary to the spirit of animalism. The truest happiness, he said, lay in working hard and living frugally. Dauji is also here. Hello, Dauji. How are you? Okay.
Hello, Vishwa.
Yeah. How are you, sir?
I'm good.
Very good, very good. Today we are going to finish the 10th chapter and
Very
then we
good.
can discuss. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Somehow it seemed as though the farm had grown richer without making the animals themselves any richer, except, of course, for the pigs and the dogs. Perhaps this was partly because there were so many pigs and so many dogs. Perhaps it was not that these creatures did not work after their fashion. There was, there was, as Squealer was never tired of explaining, endless work in the supervision and organization of the farm. Much of this work was of a kind that the other animals were too ignorant to understand. For example, Squealer told them that the pigs had to expend enormous labors every day upon mysterious things called files, reports, minutes, and memoranda. Wonderful. These were large sheets of paper which had to be closely covered with writing, and as soon as they were so covered, they were burnt in the furnace. This was of highest importance for the welfare of the farm, Squealer said. But still, neither pigs nor dogs produced any food by their own labor. There were, and there were very many of them, and their appetites were always good. As for the others, basically bureaucracy. As for the others, their life so far as they knew was as it had always been. They were generally hungry, they slept on straw, they drank from the pool, they labored in the fields. In winter, they were troubled by the cold, and in summer by the flies. Sometimes the older ones among them racked their dim memories and tried to determine whether, in the early days of the rebellion, when Jones's expulsion was still recent, things had been better or worse than now. So there was no memory that served them well to say there was a good time. So they were searching for whatever was good time after the rebellion. They could not remember. There was nothing with which they could compare their present lives. They had nothing to go upon except Squealer's lists of figures, which invariably demonstrated that everything was getting better and better. The animals found the problem insoluble. In any case, they had little time for speculating on such things now. Only old Benjamin professed to remember every detail of his long life and to know that things never had been, nor ever could be, much better or much worse. Hunger, hardship, and disappointment being, so he said, the unalterable law of life. So Benjamin had a different level of expectation. He said, life is always going to be like this, so things are never going to get better because there is no such thing. And yet, the animals never gave up hope. More, they never lost, even for an instant, their sense of honor and privilege in being members of the animal farm. They were still the only farm in the whole country, in all of England, owned and operated by animals. Not one of them, not even the youngest, not even the newcomers who had been brought from farms 10 or 20 miles away, ever ceased to marvel at that. And when they heard the gun booming and saw the green flag fluttering at the masthead, their hearts swelled with imperishable pride, and talk turned always towards the old heroic days, the expulsion of Jones, the writing of the seven commandments, the great battles in which the human invaders had been defeated. None of the old dreams had been abandoned. The republic of the animals, which Major had foretold, when the green fields of England would be untrodden by human feet, was still believed in. Some day it was coming. It might not be soon enough to make any animal now living, but still it was coming. Even the tune of Beasts of England was perhaps hummed secretly here and there. At any rate, it was a fact that every animal in the farm knew it, though no one would have dared to sing it aloud. It might be that their lives were hard, that not all of their hopes had been fulfilled, but they were conscious that they were not as other animals. If they went hungry, it was not from feeding tyrannical human beings. If they worked hard, at least they worked for themselves. No creature among them went up on two legs. No creature called any other creature master. All animals were equal. One day in early summer, Squealer ordered the sheep to follow him and led them out to a piece of waste ground at the other end of the farm, which had become overgrown with birch saplings. The sheep spent the whole day there browsing at the leaves under Squealer's supervision. In the evening, he returned to the farmhouse himself, but as it was warm weather, told the sheep to stay where they were. It ended by their remaining there for a whole week, during which time the other animals saw nothing of them. Squealer was with them for the greater part of every day. He said, teaching them to sing a new song, for which privacy was needed. It was just after the sheep had returned on a pleasant evening when the animals had finished work and making their way back to the farm buildings that the terrified neighing of a horse sounded from the yard. Startled, the animals stopped in their tracks. It was Clover's voice. She neighed again, and all the animals broke into a gallop and rushed into the yard. Then they saw what Clover had seen. It was a pig walking on his hind legs, so two legs basically. Yes, it was Squealer, a little awkwardly, as though not quite used to supporting his considerable bulk in that position, but with perfect balance. He was strolling across the yard, and a moment later, out from the door of the farmhouse came a long file of pigs, all walking on their hind legs. Some did it better than the others. One or two were even a trifle unsteady and looked as though they would have liked the support of a stick. But every one of them made his way right round the yard successfully. And one second, Sikshardin is here. Yeah. Hello, Sikshardin Garu.
Hello, sir. Good evening, sir. Good evening to all the panel members.
Good evening.
Sir, please continue, sir.
Yeah. So, but every one of them made his way around the yard, right around the yard successfully. And finally, there was a tremendous baying of dogs and a shrill crowing from the black cockerel. And out came Napoleon himself, majestically upright, casting haughty glances from side to side, and with his dogs gambolling around him. He carried a whip in his trotter. There was a deadly silence. Amazed, terrified, huddling together, the animals watched the long line of pigs march slowly round the yard. It was as though the world had turned upside down. Then there came a moment when the first shock had worn off, and when, in spite of everything, in spite of their terror of the dogs and of the habit developed through the long years of never complaining, never criticizing, no matter what happened, they might have uttered some word of protest. But just so the animals were ready to at least speak up. But just at that moment, as though at a signal, all the sheep burst, although as though at a signal, all the sheep burst into a tremendous bleating of four legs good, two legs better. So two legs bad became two legs better. Four legs good, two legs better. Four legs good, two legs better. So basically, the foundational theme of the entire animalism had been completely shifted. Now the pigs are imitating the human beings. There you go. It went on for 5 minutes without stopping, and by the time the sheep had quieted down, the chance to utter any protest had passed, for the pigs had marched back into the farmhouse. Too late. It happened too fast. The animals were in a shock, and then everybody was back to where they came from. Benjamin felt a nose nuzzling at his shoulder. He looked around. It was Clover. Her eyes looked dimmer than ever. Without saying anything, she tugged gently at his mane and led him round to the end of the big barn where the seven commandments were written. For a minute or two, they stood gazing at the tattered wall with its white lettering. My sight is failing, she said finally. Even when I was young, I could not have read what was written there. But it appears to me that the wall looks different. Are the seven commandments the same as they used to be, Benjamin? So Clover is checking with Benjamin. Help me to read this and tell me if everything is the same as it used to be. For once, Benjamin consented to break his rule as he read out to her what was written on the wall. There was nothing there new. There was nothing there now except a single commandment. It ran like this: all animals are equal.
Sir,
Yes.
sir, shall I take it, sir?
Yeah. Please go ahead. So read the
Okay, all right,
commandment.
sir. Okay, sir. For once, Benjamin consented to break his rule, and he read out to her what was written on the wall. There was nothing there now except a single commandment. It ran, all animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others. Wonderful. After that, it did not seem strange when next day the pigs who were supervising the work of the farm all carried whips in their trotters. It did not seem strange to learn that the pigs had bought themselves a wireless set, were arranging to install a telephone, and had taken out subscriptions to John Bull, Tidbits, and the Daily Mirror. It did not seem strange when Napoleon was seen strolling in the farmhouse garden with a pipe in his mouth. No, not even when the pigs took Mr. Jones's clothes out of the wardrobes and put them on. Napoleon himself appearing in a black coat, rat-catcher breeches, and leather leggings, while his favorite Sow appeared in the watered silk dress which Mrs. Jones had been used to wearing on Sundays. A week later, in the afternoon, a number of dog carts drove up to the farm. A deputation of neighboring farmers had been invited to make a tour of inspection. They were shown all over the farm and expressed great admiration for everything they saw, especially the windmill. The animals were weeding the turnip field. They worked hardly raising their faces from the hardly raising their sorry. They worked diligently, hardly raising their faces from the ground, and not knowing whether to be more frightened of the pigs or of the human visitors. That evening, loud laughter and bursts of singing came from the farmhouse, and suddenly, at the sound of the mingled voices, the animals were stricken with curiosity. What could be happening in there? Now that for the first time animals and human beings were meeting on terms of equality, with one accord, they began to creep as quietly as possible into the farmhouse garden. At the gate, they paused. At the gate, they paused, half frightened to go on, but Clover led the way in. They tiptoed up to the house, and such animals as were tall enough peered in at the dining room window. There, round the long table, sat half a dozen farmers and half a dozen of the more eminent pigs, Napoleon himself occupying the seat of honor at the head of the table. The pigs appeared completely at ease in their chairs. The company had been enjoying a game of cards but had broken off for the moment, evidently in order to drink a toast. A large jug was circulating and the mugs were being refilled with beer. No one noticed the wondering faces of the animals that gazed in at the window. Mr. Pilkington of Foxwood had stood up, his mug in his hand. In a moment, he said, he would ask the present company to drink a toast. But before doing so, there were a few words that he felt it incumbent upon him to say. It was a source of great satisfaction to him, he said, and he was sure to all others present to feel that a long period of mistrust and misunderstanding had now come to an end. There had been a time, not that he or any of the present company had shared such sentiments, but there had been a time when the respected proprietors of Animal Farm had been regarded, there had been a time when the respected proprietors of animals had been regarded, he would not say with hostility, but perhaps with a certain measure of misgiving by their human neighbors. Unfortunate incidents had occurred, mistaken ideas had been current. It had been felt that the existence of a farm owned and operated by pigs was somehow abnormal and was liable to have an unsettling effect in the neighborhood. Too many farmers had assumed, without due enquiry, that on such a farm a spirit of license and indiscipline would prevail. They had been nervous about the effects upon their own animals or even upon their human employees, but all such doubts were now dispelled. Today, he and his friends had visited Animal Farm and inspected every inch of it with their own eyes. And what did they find? Not only the most up-to-date methods, but a discipline and an orderliness which should be an example to all farmers everywhere. He believed that he was right in saying that the lower animals on animal farms did more work and received less food than any animals in the county. Indeed, he and his fellow visitors today had observed many features which they intended to introduce on their own farms immediately. He would end his remarks, he said, by emphasizing once again the friendly feelings that subsisted and ought to subsist between Animal Farm and its neighbors. Between pigs and human beings, there was not and there need not be any clash of interests whatever. Their struggles and their difficulties were one. Was not the labor problem the same everywhere? Question mark. Here it became apparent that Mr. Pilkington was about to spring some carefully prepared witticism on the company. But for a moment he was too overcome by amusement to be able to utter it. After much choking, during which his various chins turned purple, he managed to get it out. If you have your lower animals to contend with, he said, we have our lower classes. This bon mot set the table in a roar, and Mr. Pilkington once again congratulated the pigs on the low rations, the long working hours, and the general absence of pampering which he had observed on Animal Farm. And now, he said finally, he would ask the company to rise their feet and make certain that their glasses were full. Gentlemen, concluded Mr. Pilkington, gentlemen, I give you a toast to the prosperity of Animal Farm. There was enthusiastic cheering and stamping of feet. Napoleon was so gratified that he felt that he left his place and came round the table to clink his mug against Mr. Pilkington's before emptying it. When the cheering had died down, Napoleon, who had remained on his feet, intimated that he too had a few words to say. Like all of Napoleon's speeches, it was short and to the point, and to the point. He too, he said, was happy that the period of misunderstanding was at an end. For a long time there had been rumors circulated, he had reason to think, but some malignant enemy, that there was something subversive and even revolutionary in the outlook of himself and his colleagues. They had been credited with attempting to stir up rebellion among the animals on neighboring farms. Nothing could be further from the truth. Their sole wish, now and in the past, was to live at peace and in normal business relations with their neighbors. This farm, which he had the honor to control, he added, was a cooperative enterprise. The title deeds, which were in his own possession, were owned by the pigs jointly. He did not believe, he said, that any of the old suspicions still lingered, but certain changes had been made recently in the routine of the farm, which should have the effect of promoting confidence still further. Hitherto, the animals on the farm had a rather foolish custom of addressing one another as comrade. This was to be suppressed. There had also been a very strange custom whose origin was unknown of marching every Sunday morning past a boar's skull which was nailed to a post in the garden. This too would be suppressed, and the skull had already been buried. His visitors might have observed too the green flag which flew from the masthead. If so, they would perhaps have noted that the white hoof and horn with which it had previously been marked had now been removed. It would be a plain green flag from now onwards. He had only one criticism, he said, to make of Mr. Pilkington's excellent and neighbourly speech. Mr. Pilkington had referred throughout to animal farm. He could not, of course, know, for he, Napoleon, was only now for the first time announcing it, that the name Animal Farm had been abolished. Henceforward, the farm was to be known as the Manor Farm, which he believed was its correct and original name. Gentlemen, concluded Napoleon, I will give you the same toast as before, but in a different form. Fill your glasses to the brim. Gentlemen, here is my toast to the prosperity of the Manor Farm. There was the same hearty cheering as before, and the mugs were emptied to the dregs. But as the animals outside gazed at the scene, it seemed to them that some strange thing was happening. What was it that had altered in the faces of the pigs? Question mark. Clover's old dim eyes flitted from one face to another. Some of them had 5 chins, some had 4, some had 3. But what was it that seemed to be melting and changing? Then, the applause having come to an end, the company took up their cards and continued the game that had been interrupted, and the animals crept silently away. But they had not gone 20 yards when they stopped short. An uproar of voices was coming from the farmhouse. They rushed back and looked through the window again. Yes, a violent quarrel was in progress. There were shoutings, bangings on the table, sharp, suspicious glances, furious denials. The source of the trouble appeared to be that Napoleon and Mr. Pilkington had each played an ace of spades simultaneously. 12 voices were shouting in anger, and they were all alike. No question now what had happened to the faces of the pigs. The creatures outside looked from pig to man, and from man to pig, and from pig to man again, but already it was impossible to say which was which. There ends the animal farm. The now called manor farm. Sir, anyone there, sir?
Wonderful, wonderful, Shiksha.
Yeah,
Are you able to
wonderful,
hear me?
Chatfinger.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yes,
we
sir.
are able to hear you, sir, and thanks,
Wonderful.
Chatfinger. I was speaking on mute, but
Uh,
wonderful reading and
I was on mute. I'm outside. Can't help it.
yeah. November 1943 to February 1944. What a classic,
correct, sir.
basically. Yeah. So, Davaji, any comments?
Mm, There are a lot of comment I would give,
Go ahead,
but it's
please.
just sad. For me, it's just sad. After all this, the like animal didn't get anything. same thing happen again and again.
Yeah, basically the pigs and
The pigs and
human
human,
beings.
like, you can't
Exactly.
tell them apart.
Actually, sir,
Orwell's
in the
writing.
yeah, yeah, please
Yes,
continue.
yes, yes. No, no, you say.
Actually, in the very beginning, at least all the animals used to get their fair share of ration from Mr.
Hmm.
Jones. But now
Yes.
all the work is being done by animals, other animals, the so-called lower animals, and they're getting very low ration, and also the working hours are very long.
Yeah.
That is the change, and they have themselves put themselves into that kind of slavery. That is the final conclusion. As the same we can see in the current regime of China.
Hmm.
Yes. Everyone works long
Yeah, that,
hours
like,
and
it's just proving that revolution don't always lead to freedom. Sometimes they just replace one oppressor with another.
absolutely.
And
Correct.
I think the main point is, or the real tragedy is, the victim didn't even realize it. The real victim who are
Mm.
facing these things, they don't even realize this.
Yeah, basically they once somebody gets power and they do enough to protect themselves. I don't think anybody can do unless there is a mass revolution. Basically, right? Again,
Yeah. Yes. After all the drama, rebellion, promises, everything, like, for a better future, where they end up?
correct.
Nowhere.
Actually, I saw a version of Animal Farm. There is a cartoon on YouTube where in the end the
Hmm.
animals rebel again. Basically,
Oh,
yeah, and
so
then
the cycle continues.
the cycle continues
The animal
basically because
paradox.
exactly because what happens is that this party is there, right? Towards the end, all the humans and animals are partying together, and all the dogs they also drink and then just they sleep away basically.
Mm.
And so when all these guys are having that party, all the animals, basically Clover and Benjamin, they lead all the animals into another rebellion basically.
Oh, then it's just made up because Benjamin, that idiot Benjamin. Sorry, Sikshatan, but that idiot Benjamin is not going to do anything. Okay,
Mm.
he he's the, like. Sometimes I think about the character now, so I think that he is very intelligent. Okay, sometimes only, and sometimes I just think that even
See,
that some things
see,
cannot be changed.
Dawji,
You should do something.
Dawji, Dawji. See, he is just an ass. What can you expect from him, right?
No,
Yes,
but
yes.
yeah, yeah, that's true. But that character is fairly, I mean, you cannot expect such characters to do anything in a community setting. That's the learning, right?
Mm.
Yeah,
Right, sir.
yeah, it's like too much intelligence but no conviction.
Mm. Correct, sir.
Yeah, so
Like
just give
HR.
the yeah, or whoever pick, take your pick, right? In this day and age, you know.
Hmm.
Yeah, but I like the 10th chapter because in that it says there is that one part that says there are all these files, reports, numbers, and paperwork that will be burned as soon as they are created. So I thought that was really funny. You know,
Mm.
I mean, basically, if you think of communism as being against the whole aristocracy and the bourgeois and all these this kind of model, essentially that's exactly what they recreated, right? So you have an aristocrat in the form of a dictator, and you have a group of people, secret service, whatever you want to call, that surround the dictator and protect him. Whereas all these supervisors or the bourgeois, they supervise all the workers, basically,
Yes.
right? So you have essentially created a three-step model again, which is exactly what an aristocracy is, right? So there goes your communism. Everybody is equal out of the window, and even the animalism rules have been changed and completely changed to just one: two legs good, sorry, four legs good, two legs better,
Two
and
legs
then
better.
some animals are more equal. You're done, basically. You have recreated aristocracy.
Hmm.
Yeah.
No, at the end of the day, like this chapter isn't about like Animal Farm. It's about every system
Oh,
where those in
unbelievable.
power
Exactly.
manipulate, write rules.
Sir, sir, actually, what I'm sorry, excuse me, sir.
So yeah, I mean, it is about any
Sir,
system,
actually,
right? Mhm. Yeah, go ahead.
sir, actually, in the we are seeing all these in very what do you say, in a very short span of history. I wonder how many times this kind of cycle has occurred in the recorded history and also in unrecorded history.
Yeah, I presume it's many times.
I would say
Yes.
most of the time. I would
Yeah,
say. Sometimes I think if Orwell were alive today, he would shaking his head and say, like, "Told you so."
correct.
He was- he will be like that. Like, told you. But
Yeah,
this book is like that. Everyone should read it because
And
then they
there
can
is
think
one more.
out of the box.
There is
yeah.
one more reference. That, what is that skull that they were going past around every Sunday morning? All the animals. That Napoleon wants to end it. What was that reference? I mean,
So I think it's basically the pig that probably died in one of the wars or something like that.
Old
So,
Major,
oh,
Old
Old Major,
Major.
okay,
Old
Okay,
Major.
there you go. Old Major is gone.
okay, okay. The boar's
Yeah,
skull. It said.
the original.
Yes, Weisbor.
Yeah, the basically Karl Marx.
Oh, okay, okay.
The new communism doesn't even respect Karl Marx.
Oh.
Mm. Yeah, it's like when a politician leader gives grand speeches about justice and change, na? But years
Mhm.
later, all those ideas are like quietly buried under
Exactly.
personal gain and corruption.
Correct.
And also, sir, they want to, I mean, after the rebellion has started and everybody called themselves equals, they referred each other as comrades.
Correct.
They,
Mhm.
and also wanted to end this kind of tradition
Correct.
Yes.
in which they wanted to,
So essentially, the old animal farm returned. That is the whole idea there.
Yes.
mm,
All that has happened is
They
instead of human
they
beings,
dreamed of
yeah,
a utopia, but
correct.
they are now living in worse regime than before.
Than before, and all that happened is instead of Jones, now pigs are in charge.
Yes.
and it is more worse, sir, because
Exactly.
there is longer working hours and less ration.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's it.
That's why I said, no, it's worse than before. I have a question also
Exactly.
in this.
Mhm.
What do you guys think if the master in this like rebellion was boxer, not Napoleon or Snowball? if it was Boxer, things would have changed, or Boxer would have been the next Napoleon, like would have become.
It's hard to tell, you know.
I think Boxer had no leadership qualities, sir.
Exactly. So
Hmm.
basically, yeah, exactly. So
He's
see,
a
the thing is
loyal
this, right?
companion. Yeah.
Yeah. See, the thing is this: when there are people ready to be exploited, if you don't exploit
Yeah.
and corner power, somebody else will do it and replace you. So the utopia can last
Yeah.
for a very short
If you
period of
don't work
time.
for yourself, you will
Yeah,
work for somebody else.
correct. Basically,
Yeah.
right? And if you are the type that works for somebody else but is put on top like a head, then it will last for a very short period of time until somebody like a Napoleon will throw you out, basically, and then establish the same dystopia. Because ultimately, you have to be hungry for that power. And once you have the power, you misuse it to gain more power. If somebody is not able to do it, they'll last for a very short period of time, you know, because
Yeah.
there's no protection that you're not setting a fence around yourself to protect yourself, right? Because that's what
Mm,
Napoleon did first. What did he do? He took away all the dogs, right?
mm,
And created that
yeah.
fence around himself, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
if
That's
Boxer
why I
became,
said
yeah,
in that chapter 5 or 6. I remember when the oppressed stop questioning authority, now they don't get freedom. They just get new masters.
yeah, absolutely, and you get probably worse ones, you know.
Yeah.
So that is exactly how it is, and to pick your color of flag, it doesn't matter.
Mm,
Yeah, whether it is saffron or red or green or blue or whatever the color you want.
yeah. If Animal Farm was written today, na, like in today's time, I think she would have would be trending on Twitter or something. Like Benjamin would be the social media advisor, something like that post. They have like
But
a
actually,
social,
what I
what
think
we say,
is,
social
yeah,
team, social media handling team.
actually,
What we say,
mm,
cyber team.
Cyber team. Oh, even IT cell.
Yeah, IT. Yes. IT cell. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
IT cell is squealer.
Yeah, IT cell is queer.
you know. Actually, have you seen this
Today's
movie
in today's time.
in today's time? Have you seen this movie, The Accidental Prime Minister?
Yes, yes, I have seen.
Yeah. So Sanjay Baru is the man, basically, right?
Yep.
In that, he's the IT cell guy.
Mm,
mm. Actually, I would say those who are getting attracted to communism or
Shiksha,
they what, sir?
Shiksha, allow me 10 seconds, sir. Anyway,
Yes,
outside.
sir, please, please.
తెలుగులో సామెత ఉంది మనకి అందరూ సమానమే కానీ కొంతమంది ఎక్కువ సమానం ఇక్కడ ఇదే మ్యాటర్
Correct, sir.
Exactly.
అది లాస్ట్ ఫైనల్ కమాండ్మెంట్ ఆఫ్ కమ్యూనిజం సార్ అది లాస్ట్ అదే
Yeah.
వచ్చింది.
Yeah. Some people are more equal than others. Exactly.
yes.
Right.
That was the final commandment, sir.
Exactly. That's it. And it was the only one left.
Only one. All other was
All other ones
all
were
other ones
removed.
no got eliminated, not removed.
Exactly. Got cancelled.
Perfect, sir. Perfect.
Yeah. Exactly.
So, sir, what I was trying to say was those who are first getting attracted to communism or they think that communism might be answer to some the some of the problems that are existing in the society. They must first read this book and then later they should think of what they are getting into. Sir. This
Yeah.
is my
Absolutely.
suggestion.
Absolutely.
Not,
I mean,
I'm
to,
not
to
in a
be very
position to give
frank,
advice, but sir.
yeah, no, no, totally. To be very frank, there are many places, even in India, even today in bureaucracy and in the universities everywhere,
Yeah.
the these kinds of ideologies are very, very prevalent, basically,
Yes,
right?
yes, sir.
And even in the West, the left, right, so-called left, which is essentially a slightly downplayed version of communism,
Mm.
the far left, basically, is still very strong in these. Basically, they thrive in self-declaring themselves as intellectuals that worry
Intellectuals.
about
Correct.
everybody else, basically, right? It sounds very
Correct, sir.
attractive when they start, but very
Yes,
soon you will
yes.
realize that it's another Napoleon in the making, basically.
Exactly, sir.
You know?
And to a certain extent, I would appreciate Mr. Donald Trump, sir, at this point, because he's showing how to uproot these leftist ecosystem.
He, he's
I have
trying.
recently, yes,
Yeah,
sir, yes, I have recently seen in the news that he is trying to cut off the Department of Education, sir. He was
yeah,
trying
yeah. So,
to,
yeah.
uh,
People who don't know what Department of Education is, they think that he's eliminating all public school policy and all that. It's not true. So
okay.
previously, the schooling and everything used to be a state subject.
Mm,
So all he is doing is removing the federal control on all these things so that every state can mandate whatever it wants in their schools, basically.
अच्छा, अच्छा.
So that's all is happening. The federal overseeing department is gone, right? So that
Okay.
way, just like in India, law and order is a state subject. In the US,
Oh,
education
okay,
is going to
okay.
become a state subject.
Okay. Every state to its own.
Yeah, I mean more or less
As far
because
as the,
yeah,
okay.
as far as the curriculum funding budgets, all those things are concerned,
Right, right, sir.
right? But again, that doesn't mean that states will go and do whatever they want. They are obviously always looking at each other and trying to figure out more or less to
Mm,
stay within boundaries of what is reasonable, basically, right?
mm. Right, right, sir.
Yeah. So basically, all these nationally mandated testing, and there is like lot of overhead that comes with a centralized education system. So he's trying to decentralize it more than anything else.
Mm,
Yeah,
mm,
but the public school system and the public education system will still remain.
mm,
Now it's more regulated by the states directly.
mm,
Yeah, but yeah, I mean he's trying, but it's very deep rooted. It takes at least 1 or 2 generations for things to slowly sort of work themselves out, right?
correct, sir.
Yeah,
Correct. All
but
this
yeah,
mess that they have made all these years
yeah.
is
So Daji, do you
unbelievable, sir.
use this to teach in your class or when you have a class?
Yes, definitely.
Mm, okay.
Because this is like great example of like dictatorship, rights, knowing what to do, what not to do. There are a lot of things that you can learn from it. Not only about communism or anything. Just the regular world. What you see now, when you see propaganda, it's just not that they are giving you false facts. They are just making you confused. So
Correct.
you don't know what's real. They are not giving
Correct.
you false facts. They are just making you confused. Like this is also there, this is also there, this is also. Now you don't know what's the like
Correct.
real deal.
Yeah. They're giving you sometimes disjointed facts also, with which you can make
Yeah.
no sense whatsoever. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah.
And, and when I teach students about these things, like there are some chapters also not about this, but about curiosity, like regimes of powers, about
Yeah.
aristocracy, democracy, global equalship, like equality or everything. When we discuss about these things, we can give example from this book, and there are lots of other books also. But in this books, I particularly focus not on Napoleon. I focus on the other animals because
Yeah.
it's not Napoleon who is holding the power. Like
Yeah.
he is holding the power by the dogs. you can see that, but the problem is with the other animals. If they knew, I sometimes think they knew, but they didn't do anything. They
Anything
should
about it?
have.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
scariest part of animal farm is how comfortable the animal become with their chains. That's the scariest part.
yeah,
So I try to teach students that you should not like be comfortable with your chains, because first they take your voice, then they take your rights, and finally they make you thank like thank them for you, like thank you bolo mere ko
yeah,
about this, that I have taken your voice also, I have taken your rights also, now thank you.
Thank you for giving me these chains. Thank
Yeah,
you for
thank you giving.
putting me
Yes.
into slavery. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's
more or
what I
less.
like.
Painful. Yeah, I agree. So I guess, yeah, with that we can probably start going towards the closure. So next book that we are going to read is Sophie's World. Okay, that's what we
Right,
want to
sir.
do. At least for the time being, that is the decision. So Dauji, we welcome your feedback in that also. Please participate. Um,
Definitely, definitely.
yeah, and it's
I'm
a
That's
wonderful.
actually,
my favorite book.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm,
Go ahead.
I'm also very
A
excited
starter pack
to.
for philosophy.
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah, so it'll give you a sort of an overview of the Western philosophy and where it comes from and things like that. You know, and I
yeah.
think it's important for us to learn. Yeah,
And I would like I'm going to say today, and I will say like for whole the time like this Sophie's World we will discuss about it every day. I would say that do not come if you want any answer. If you want any answer, do not watch that video, okay? Because there is no answer.
right. So the idea of a philosophical system is not necessarily to give answers, but how to ask the right questions so that your
Yes.
view of the world aligns more with what it really is, basically.
Yeah, because when you see in some reels, na, that you don't need answers, you need perfect questions, and
Right.
you just think what he is saying, what the hell is saying. But when you go into philosophy, na, this becomes so real,
Right.
because it's not about the answers you are seeking, it's about question. What you are asking is define the level that you get the answer. If you
Right.
are asking a third grade question, you will get a third grade answer. If
Correct.
you are asking a 12th grade question, and then you will get that answer.
Right.
It's about that.
Very well. Thanks, Dahuji. Thanks, Shadin. Ruth.
Yes,
Thanks,
sir.
Lahari Garu.
One small point, sir, I would like to
Yes, sir.
say. Say, about couple of days ago, we were both in some channel and we discussed this similar thing. If you have a doubt, it depends upon whom you are asking your doubt to. Whether you are asking
Mm,
the teacher or the most so-called intelligent student in the class. Depending on
mm,
that, your answer also changes. If you
correct.
need the right answer, ask the right person. That would be the teacher in this case.
Mm,
Yes, sir. Thank you.
absolutely correct, sir. Okay. So we'll close now
Sir,
and then we'll.
just one final point, sir. Uh, yeah, so I, uh, I think the coincidence of the book ending on this particular day, which is the world's atheist day, putting an end to communism, is what to say about this? Is it can we consider this as a miracle or just a
It's not a
coincidence?
miracle. It's just a. I'll tell you, it's a mere coincidence. Let's not become too superstitious. All right, that also is not good for us.
Okay. Then we should say Jai Atheist Deva.
Exactly. It is no.
You know?
It is by God's grace that we are actually. Look how coincidental it is. That kind of stuff. No, it's
Exactly,
not. It's
exactly,
just
sir.
a
I mean,
pure coincidence.
there is one more thing. The
Sir,
thing is, communism as a political parties have come to already been laid to rest in most of the countries, except in one or two places where it is no more communism. It is just the name of communism, but they are also capitalist. But
Exactly.
communism as an ideology, it has already penetrated every sector.
Mhm.
Whatever you find, there will be
Right.
communism somewhere, somewhere, somewhere. It has already been
Exactly.
incorporated into your teachings.
That's the
Correct, sir.
problem,
Correct.
right? So that's why
Yeah,
I'm saying
that
that
exists.
while it is something that we want to achieve eventually, that failed ideologies like communism, etc., should be, I mean, taken out of the structures of various countries. It has taken a good 30 to 40 years to get them in. So it's going to take a lot, like at least that much time, or maybe at least half of it, to get them out, basically. It's not going to be an overnight flip, right? Case in point, India, it's
Correct,
still
sir.
very
Correct.
left. The entire bureaucracy is very left, you know. So I don't know. I mean,
Correct, sir.
yeah.
Sir, it is
So,
I
not that
think because
bureaucracy is left, sir. If to become a bureaucrat, you need to be only a leftist. You have to read the leftist theology, leftist book, leftist ideology, leftist methods. And the same thing you
Yeah,
have to replicate. Otherwise, you cannot become a bureaucrat. Once you become a bureaucrat, you will be left with the same study. Because once you enter the service, you'll stop reading, most of them at least.
correct.
So
sir.
whatever
Sir,
remains is the same scrap they have studied in school.
in a single line, to say the whole system is leftist, sir. The
Exactly.
governments may be rightist or centrist or whatever they are, but the system itself is leftist.
Exactly
So how
correct.
can you
That's
escape
why,
from that?
and that's why, it has taken quite some time for us to get there. It is going to take some time
Mm,
to at least bring it to the center, if at all that is even a thing, basically.
correct, sir.
Yeah. All right.
you are talking about being in central, I just worshipped an atheist god, and that atheist god turn off my internet.
Exactly.
Why
There you
it
go.
keep
See, you should
happening
have
with me?
exactly. So you should make up your mind, Daji. Do you want to be an atheist or do you want to worship an atheist god? You decide.
I don't want to be anything. I am happy the way I'm.
Well, then the leftists will not leave you alone. They'll come and give their label to you,
Even the
basically. You
writers
may not
don't
have
leave me
label.
alone, man.
Nobody is going to
Even
leave
the
you alone.
writers don't leave me.
Rightists, though, anyway, they are
And
not going to
that's
leave
the
you
good
alone.
thing. That's the good thing, I think. If the right and left both are unhappy with me, then I'm good. If one of them is happy with me, then the problem comes. If the both are saying that thou is a bad person, then I'm happy. No problem.
Okay,
That's
on
my
that
way of
note,
thinking.
yeah, exactly. All the viewers decide which side they want to be, whether in the middle, you want to make everybody unhappy and then you are happy. Either way, I think we are done with George Orwell. Wonderful book.
I
It's a
I
lot
have a
easier.
quote on this by
Yeah,
my, Visha. I have a
yeah, go
quote
ahead.
by my teacher that
Mm,
in of that I would say in Hindi, okay? So it's easier for me. कि 13 से लेके 25 तक आदमी कॉमरेड होता है,
mm,
25 से लेके 35 तक आदमी मिडिल होता है, सोचता है, और 35 के बाद राइट हो जाता है,
yeah.
बुढ़ा होता होता जाता है जैसे. तो बोले बोले सबकी जिंदगी ऐसी होती है. शुरू में होता है कि कौन है, ये सब कुछ नहीं होता है, और उसके बाद होता है कि हो सकता है होता हो. फिर एंड लाइफ आते आते जब जब दिखता है कि मौत आ रही है, तब होता है कि हे भगवान बचा लेना.
Wonderful.
Wonderful.
Sir,
Yeah,
sir, I think you should also say that line of yours
right. It's not mine.
after
Okay.
30 before.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It's not my line. It's like this. It goes like this, right? Before 25, if you're not a leftist, then you're heartless. After 25, if you're not a
Yeah.
rightist, then you're brainless, basically.
True, indeed, true.
So anyway,
And
with
there
that,
we go,
we'll
like the people in center, where we will go.
well, you stay in the center. You need to. No, you keep trying to figure out where the center is. You keep trying to
See,
figure out where the center.
Yeah.
then
What about
you'll have to see, then you'll have to be like Benjamin.
Ah, shit, Benjamin. Idiot.
Hmm.
Oh, man.
All right.
I would
So
rather be boxer.
exactly. So you should be. See, bottom line
Congratulations.
is this: irrespective of where you are, you have to be comfortable in your own skin. Labels be damned, basically.
Correct,
Right?
correct. That's
Yeah, that's the idea. At the end of the day,
Yes.
it's like follow your bliss. All right.
Yeah.
With that, yeah, that's a famous quote from Joseph Campbell, the mythologist. So we'll close with that. We'll have a discussion backstage, Ajay. So
Okay.
uh, to all the viewers, thanks for participating. If you haven't seen the previous episodes, they're all available. Please go take a look. It's a wonderful classic that we have just finished. Very thought-provoking and an ageless classic, timeless classic, basically. So with that, we close George Orwell's
Unfor-
Animal Farm. Yeah,
Unfortunately, it's timeless.
yeah, exactly. Unfortunately for the humankind, fortunately for the future generations, there is a book that talks about organizations and how they operate. So enjoy, do your own thinking, and then continue along the journey. We'll start with Sophie's World reading next. All right. Sikshardhan Garu,
great, sir.
Garu, Garu,
Good, sir.
Dauji, and whoever else participated today, as well as who have been participating in the comments, looking at the videos, etc. Thank you very much. We appreciate your participation and contribution. If you have any questions, just post them after you watch the video. I'll be more than happy to answer. With that, we'll close this session. Thank you.